Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, everyone. We begin our event proceeding with a recitation from Holy Quran. Please, Ahmad, I request you to please play.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر.
My name is Imran. I'm a research analyst at the Institute of Regional Studies. On behalf of the Institute of Regional Studies, President IRS Nadeem Rayaz and its team, I welcome all the participants of this webinar on cyber threats and Pakistan response. As everyone is aware that the dependence on information technology is increasing with every passing day. Banking, transportation, health, education, and defense, almost all the sectors, including formal, informal, government and private, are going digital. Since Pakistan is lagging in software development, data is being shared through non-certified imported softwares, which is making sensitive information vulnerable to security threats, data theft that can be manipulated by hostile elements within the country and outside the country to create social unrest, political instability in Pakistan. Same is the case with hardware. Almost all the equipment in Pakistan whether used in defense, government and private organizations, are landed from different countries. Even the commonly used minor equipment like USB is not manufactured in Pakistan. The situation is alarming as Pakistan is surrounded by a hostile country, which is leading in software technology. And this is a high time to figure out cyber challenges in Pakistan. The issue has gained a special place in national security parameters outlined in the recent Islamabad security dialogue as well. Thus, the purpose of this seminar, the purpose of this webinar is not just to discuss the theoretical interpretations of different kinds of cyber threats, but to discuss what Pakistan can do to mitigate these cyber security challenges within its limited capacity. So for this purpose, we have a panel of 3 distinguished speakers in the field of information technology. Ms. Sehrish Mujtaba, Mr. Arzak Khan, and Mr. Umar Sheraz. I thank all the panelists for joining us. Before giving floor to our first speaker, Mr. Sehrish Mujtaba, I would like to apprise the audience that Sehrish is an experienced cybersecurity professional having more than 10 years experience in the area of cybersecurity, information security governance, risk and compliance, and cybersecurity operations. Currently working as a head of information security in an esteemed organization. She holds Bachelor of Engineering in Computer and Information System from NED University of Engineering and Technology. She is also certified IBM QRADR professional, cybersecurity nexus professional, certified ethical hacker, certified forensic investigator, and ISO 27001 lead implementer. She has been key speaker in cybersecurity seminars and workshops and trainer for SOC and IBM QRADR. Areas of expertise include consultancy and implementation of cybersecurity, security operations center, security information and event management using top industry recognized frameworks, methodology, products, tools, process, procedures, risk analysis. She has been selected as a member of Central Steering Committee of Cybersecurity and Crime by the Federation of Pakistan Chamber of Commerce and Industry in 2020. With this introduction, I welcome Ms. Sehrish on this webinar. Mr. Sehrish, as I mentioned, in the beginning that Pakistan is lagging behind in the field of cybersecurity. So, how do you see the overall situation in Pakistan in terms of dealing with the security threat and Pakistan's readiness? With this, over to you, Ms. Sehrish. Ms. Sehrish, are you listening me? Ahmad, can you please figure out what's
Her internet is not working. Let me ask her to try again.
okay? I apologize for internet inconvenience. We have to wait for it.
She's coming back online in 5 minutes, so we can go for Arzak Khan.
Arzak Khan, okay. Okay. Before of internet problem, we have to move to our second speaker, Mr. Arzak Khan, who is internet governance and cybersecurity expert, having expertise and extensive experience in ICT, e-governance project management of globally recognized identity management and social safety net programs. He is a founder of Internet Policy Observatory Pakistan, a leading think tank providing researchers, governments, regulators, operators, multilateral institutions, development agencies, and community organizations with information and analysis required to develop innovative and South-centric policies from modern age cyber technologies. His upcoming book is Cyber War, the Next Threat to the National Security of Pakistan, raises the critical linkages of mass surveillance, artificial intelligence to the national security of Pakistan. He has also conducted various studies examining the impact of the digital divide in the global south, growing use of internet connected devices in Pakistan society, and the role of new media in civic and political participation. Arzak holds a master's degree in communication management from Business School, Glasgow, United Kingdom. He is a receiver of various prominent awards from UK, Sweden, Norway, Geneva, and United Nations. With this, I welcome you in this webinar. Mr. Arzak, what is your take on this issue of cyber security challenges? How can Pakistan better prepare its security infrastructure? Over to you, Mr. Arzak Khan.
Thank you, Imran Saab, and thank you, Ahmad, for inviting me to this very important webinar. I'm glad that we are talking about the cybersecurity threats in Pakistan and how it impacts the entire ecosystem for information communication technology. Before we talk about responses from the Pakistani community and most importantly, the government, it is important to understand the threats that we are facing in terms of cyber surveillance, cyber security, and cyber espionage, along with many others. If you remember back in 2019, there were reports which said senior Pakistani official mobile phones were hacked and were used for covert surveillance purposes. Sorry, using a special malware that was designed by an Israeli company known as the NSO Group. The malware Pegasus, which was used to infiltrate phones for senior government officials, was one such experience where we came to know about the cybersecurity threatscape, and little was done to mitigate those threats. The biggest malware was very effective, I think, that it could use your phone, your microphone, as well as access to your messages, email contacts, passwords, the phone gallery, along with determining your GPS location at various times. So that was one such incident, and along with that, we have seen that the rivalry between India and Pakistan. The both countries have cyber warfare capabilities as well, but so far we have not seen anything full blown between both of the countries. We do get mid-scale attacks between each other, so they are like small scale, mid-scale cyber attacks that's happening between neighbors, which are frequent, more related to web vandalism and trying to steal data. Apart from that, we have not seen that. And the third most important aspect that we have seen over the period of time, and there has been a lot of development in recent past, is along with the missile technology, the technology we use for connect our missile systems, the jets, the tanks, all use networks for connectivity. So there's a very little talk in media from academics perspective as well, that what might happen if, God forbid, any of the nuclear assets or any of the nuclear missile systems or maybe one of the jets, all powered using modern technology, gets hacked. So these are some of the challenges that we know. And back in 2013, you might remember that Edward Snowden, which was a CIA contractor, also revealed that Pakistan was one of the topmost countries targeted for surveillance by US National Security Agency, along with many other foreign intelligence agencies as well. And in 2017, the Pakistan Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs were also warned about the influence or impact of foreign governments on targeting Pakistani politicians, human rights activists, most importantly military establishments as well, in trying to understand and standardize more of the ecosystem. I think it's very important from a Pakistani perspective, and in terms of our response, that we need to devote more resources for securing our infrastructure in terms of connectivity, in terms of databases, in terms of strengthening research around cybersecurity and development, which requires that Pakistan needs to develop a cybersecurity framework to counter many of the emerging threats, such as identity theft, there is financial data theft, and there is a surveillance of critical infrastructure. I mean, we are embarking on a digital journey, and there are so many critical infrastructure that keeps springing up. And you also witness a lot of government agencies and offices are deploying modern technology in terms of ICTs, in terms of modernizing their infrastructure, but very little attention is paid to the cybersecurity threats. Unfortunately, at the moment, Pakistan does not have a full-fledged agency for protecting the country from cyber attacks, like we have seen in the US, in UK, and in many other parts of the globalized world. I think there's a lot of focus that is being paid to the cybersecurity threats in the globalized world, but unfortunately in Pakistan, we do not see such kind of an agency that has been set up. Under the PICA Cyber Crimes Legislation Act, Federal Investigation Agency, FIA, was given the task to deal with cyber crimes, but unfortunately they lack the critical capacity of shielding the country's infrastructure and is deficient in terms of resources, manpower, and facilities, which is again a very challenging front as well. So in my opinion, Pakistan needs to work rigorously on in developing cyber research and academic institutes and to target upcoming talented resources that can be used to capitalize in boosting our cybersecurity infrastructure. And there needs to be a government leadership, importantly, to formulate such a cybersecurity strategy. Unfortunately, so far it has not materialized, which is a shame, but I think the sooner we realize, the better it is for the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arzak Khan, for your comprehensive talk that presented a holistic view of cyber threats and the challenges of the nuclear facilities, challenges to nuclear facilities, and or the security of government equipment that we use is already established. But since you have said that there is no centralized system or agency that can handle these cyber threats, so it's really alarming. So I think Sehrish has joined us again. So I have already apprised the audience about her expertise. I would hand over the floor to Ms. Harish. Miss Sehrish. As I mentioned, are you listening, Miss Sehrish? There was a problem in internet connectivity. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, as I mentioned in the beginning, that Pakistan is lagging in the field of cyber security. So, how do you see the overall situation in Pakistan in terms of dealing with the security threats and Pakistan's readiness? Over to you.
Thank you so very much. And audience, I would like to mention my apology for being unconnected for a while. So my name is Sehrish, and I have an experience of around 12 years in cybersecurity, and I'm been associated with different international and national forums as well, which is regarding to the cybersecurity, where we are discussing about the national security or national interest levels for cyberspace as well. Recently, we have made cybersecurity committee as well at Pakistan Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I'm steering that committee as well. So there are certain initiatives which we are taking, but the question is that what are the real, factual threats which is right now facing Pakistan in terms of cyberspace? So the major threat that needs to be addressed in terms of threats is the unregulated cyberspace. The laws which regulates the Pakistani cyberspace are very minimal and can be easily evaded by someone with a little knowledge of computer systems. And the unregulated cyberspace has given birth to a number of threatening concepts in Pakistan as well. For example, the cyber terrorism. Now, cyber terrorism has been propagated, and unregulated cyberspace has fueled up the impact of terrorism as well, where terrorist organizations use the digital information medium to spread violence, terror, and extremism with quite ease. And Pakistan has already suffered a lot in the last 2 decades due to this terrorism. Then there is the cyber propaganda as well, which is also the use of cyberspace to spread violence, anti-state agenda, and narratives of extremism by individuals, political and religious groups. So this kind of propaganda can put any government under immense pressure, and the effect of cyber propaganda can be witnessed from international events such as the alleged manipulation of 2016 presidential elections by Russia as well. So there are different sort of cyber propagandas as well. The internet and social media, which has been flooded many times by fake news to create panics within the public. Then there is another threat, which is the cyber harassment. So, which can be termed as the cyber bullying as well. This is the individual use of cyber domain to bully people across many social media platforms. Most of the times, the victims are, generally using social media, who are blackmailed and used for different sort of, malicious purposes. So, the effects of cyber bullying is obviously different, and research shows that the cyberbullying has an impact on young people too much. Then there is another cyber threat which can be faced by Pakistan, and which is the lack of awareness, especially to the public. Right. So if you are seeing that right now, in use of internet and social media is not limited to the youngsters, but it's being used by the adult people and even the kids as well. So it's very important, and it's that the awareness, especially in the cyber domain, should be promoted. And there is a lack of understanding of public on how to use the internet and social media platforms, and lack of knowledge convinces mostly undereducated classes to believe that the fake news, rather than even now understanding what they are seeing on their devices. So this is promoting the lack of understanding of cyber ethics as well, which often leads to cyberbullying and harassments. In terms of economic, if we talk about the economic disruptions in the cyberspace threats, there can be some of the threats like the cyber theft, which is the stealing of money targeting internet-based trading and banking companies. So Pakistan has witnessed such kind of attacks in most recent, like in 2018 November, when people were deprived of million of rupees using unauthorized online transfer, and Pakistani authorities were just helpless to explain that incident. Until now, no criminal is being identified, and has created a dilemma where people are losing trust in using internet banking systems. So another economic disruption that can be made is the use of cryptocurrencies. The mysterious rise of cryptocurrencies in the past few years have attracted investments from major investors because of its secure and stealthy nature. But the cryptocurrencies are forecasted to be used extensively in terror financing because of its complex transaction systems. For a country like Pakistan with less efficient e-payment system, it's difficult to avert and track the financial activities of the terrorist and the anti-state organizations which are directly linked to its national security. So these are some of the effects. Then there is another threat, which is the ransomware. So ransomwares are virus softwares that are used to infect targeted computers and encrypting their data, which is being unusable until a specified ransom is being paid off the unidentified attackers. So this is most of the time the attackers demand the money in cryptocurrencies, which makes them difficult, almost impossible to track down the attackers. So these are some of the cyber threats. Then there are some cyber physical attacks as well. For example, the sabotage. Sabotage is the domain of cyber warfare, which is considered as the attack where the target of attackers is the computer systems controlling critical infrastructure, such as it can be automated production systems. It can be any electrical distribution system, power grids as well. So this can also be some sort of this kind of development in technology makes any country of the world a target for sabotage, as we have witnessed the case of Iran when its nuclear program was hit by the Stereotex virus. Then there can be another threat, which is the data breach. So data breaches have emerged as critical failure in information and communication system. For example, in the last few years, on many occasions, the personal data of individuals using social media on internet have been breached and accessed illegally. Then it's sold on illegally on the internet as well, which in turn then used to be a case of cyber harassment as well. Then again, relying on foreign equipments, the use of foreign equipment in the domain of information and communication, as Imran has already addressed. So these technologies are one of the most ill researched area in the cyberspace. So these are some of the threats that we as a Pakistani nation are facing right now. But the thing is, what is the way forward for Pakistan in order to address the cyber threats or the issues which is related to the cyberspace? So there are some of the suggestion as well which I want to address through this platform. For example, at the national level, there is a requirement or an urgent need of formulating a broad national security policy. So it's very critical for the government to legislate a broad and comprehensive national cybersecurity policy, which must lay down the well-defined procedures to tackle down the issues of cybersecurity. The scope of cybercrime bill should be expanded and be part of the national cybersecurity policy. Then there should be an establishment of National Cyber Command. So National Cyber Command is very important to handle the issue of cyber warfare, which is considered as part of the fifth generation war. So while preparing the offensive and defensive cyber war capabilities, currently we have that NR3C of FIA, which can continue only to tackle the minor cyber crimes. So there is a requirement of establishing this National Cyber Command as well. Then there is another requirement of regulating the Pakistan's cyberspace. Since we know that the regulation of current cyberspace is very critical for the national security of Pakistan, as PTA has failed to implement the writ of state in cyberspace, such as the ban of social media in the past due to the issue of certain cases like the blasphemy case and all these things. But this can be done by devising a comprehensive mechanism with IT industry and with LEA as well to regulate the cyberspace with the standards of ICANN internationally. So these are some of the things that can be suggested. Capacity building is also very important. This is also one of the steps that needs to be addressed, that the capacity of Pakistan's law enforcement agencies especially should be enhanced in order to deal with new innovations in cyber crimes and in cyberspace. So that's also very important, and the forces should be divided into a different area of operations with regard to harassment, economic embezzlement, terrorism, and many other cyber spheres. Now, there is another thing that I want to highlight is the public awareness campaign. The public should be educated with campaigns and promotions to help them understand that their rights and ethics in the domain of cyberspace. what are their major ethics. Like common people doesn't know about it. So many of the internet users in Pakistan are literally unable to distinguish between the pros and cons of using internet, especially the social media like the Facebook, Twitter handles, and LinkedIn accounts as well. So there should be an awareness, some national cyber security awareness day as well, in order to promote the awareness of importance of cyber security. So the future strategy should also have some sort of regulation of imported computer hardwares as well. And then there should be there can be a strategy of manufacturing of computer hardwares within Pakistan as well. Then there is one more thing which is very critical, and I would like to highlight, is the broad introduction of cyber warfare in the curriculum at secondary and higher secondary level. So in Pakistan, primary and secondary level computer books do not have any material on the cyber security. Even at universities, the topic that is specifically discussed is outdated. So in this regard, the university curriculum should also be amended so that our future generation are not dependent on foreign products, and they should have also a brief overview of cyber warfare and the current cyberspace issues as well, and then how to deal with all these things, and how to have cyber security awareness. So in this regard, research and development is also very important, and the development of software, especially for the cyber space, is also very important. So this is the conclusion from my side, where I have tried to provide and address summarized view of the issues which has been faced in Pakistan in the cyber space, and then how to address them. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Sehrish, for apprising the audience about the new kinds of threats like cyberbullying, cyber harassment, and the economic disruption in digital currency. I think we are pretty good at understanding our challenges, the dynamics of threats that we are facing. But there is a dire need that there should be included or incorporated in the national security debate or in the policy. So thank you very much. Now we move to the third speaker, that is Mr. Umar Sheraz. Umar Sheraz is an innovation policy analyst and futurist, and has been involved with policy analysis, design, and facilitation at various levels, resulting in fruitful change. He has served at Comstek as a senior research analyst. He has been a member of the review committee of the Science and Technology and Innovation Policy of Pakistan. He co-authored a comprehensive SWOT analysis of STI aspects of Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. With this introduction, I welcome you in this webinar. Mr. Sheraz, as you are a futurist, so how do you foresee the cyber security environment in Pakistan in the coming days? And I mean, what is your threat perception in Pakistan? Over to you, Mr. Sheraz.
Okay, ji. Assalamu alaikum, ji, and thank you very much for creating this dialogue space, ji. And thank you very much for, I think this is a very important topic, which is the need of our times. Could you kindly let me share, I need to share a presentation, please. Could you let me do that? Yeah. Also, I would like to thank my fellow colleagues who gave a very comprehensive overview of the cybersecurity aspects, which are very, very important, and they gave the technical details. And I'm very happy with that, because then I don't have to, focus on the technical parts. I can move towards the foresight part and the policy part. Achha ji. Can I share? Okay, ji. Yeah, ek minute. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, ji. So, my area is foresight, and I look at the future space, and especially how it relates to policy making. And when I talk about foresight, we talk about how we try to anticipate issues before they happen. and I'll be talking about more in my presentation now. The reason why we do that is because then we can have better anticipation. So we can identify and better prepare sooner for new opportunities and challenges that could emerge in the future. We could also have some sort of policy innovation, because usually policymakers are a little slow. हमेशा जरा पॉलिसी मेकर्स एक कदम पीछे ही रहते हैं. टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड जो कंपनीज हैं वो जरा आगे होती हैं और तेज होती हैं. So the linking the two is a little problematic. And finally, what we also need to do is if we can identify disruptions early on, then we can, proof ourselves against such disruptions in a better way. So this is the, hang on a second, let me put this, इसको जरा मैं इस पर डाल दूं और okay, this is the anatomy of almost any issue in the world. चाहे साइबर सिक्योरिटी से रिलेटेड हो, चाहे जो कोविड का मामला जिसमें हम चल रहे हैं, all of them have, this is the anatomy of any breakdown of any such issue. Usually what happens is that right in the beginning there's going to be some really crazy people who come up with some idea that yeah, such a thing could happen. It's in its early discovery, some data is collected, then the media comes to know about it, then it comes into the newspapers. But what you see over here is governments are really, really slow to take action. And this is the problem area. So getting back to your question, Imran said, what is really required is that connecting this part with this part. So for example, COVID-19, for example, for the futures community, it is not something very new. This is something that has been written in reports of the past 13 years. But it's governments who take action very, very late. Likewise, the various cybersecurity issues have been highlighted by my esteemed colleagues. They've been around for quite some time. But you see, governments take action very, very, very late. So it's very, very important that at this early stage, we try to identify the issues and then link them up with policymakers so that if there are some opportunity spaces, we can avail of these opportunities. If there are some disruptions which are, detected early on, we can, minimize the effects of those disruptions early. Okay. So this is another way of looking at the same diagram, but this is in terms of media coverage and public awareness. What here you see is usually it's going to be some sort of science fiction, artistic work, some sort of patents. By the time governments come in, it's already too late. So very, very important. And this is one mistake from my political presentation, that there's a need to link these early creation of these ideas to governments. That's very, very important. And we can apply this to cybersecurity as well. So my colleagues, they give lots of ideas. So let's be a little creative over here. Mashallah, इस वक्त 19 के करीब लोग हैं. Let's start with some ideas. So let's say, what is one thing which is still not a crime, but could be a crime in the near future? ठीक है ना? Zoom, for example, जो है ये आज से 1 साल पहले किसी ने सोचा था कि जो है कभी हम इस्तेमाल करेंगे. Now everybody is using it. Even my kids use it. ठीक है ना? तो Zoom के ऊपर जो है जो issues जो है Zoom, hang on a second, जी कुछ messages आ रहे हैं. Hang on a second. How do you? Hang on a second. So if the different participants, if they can in the chat, they could come up with some ideas which are still not a crime, not a cybersecurity issue right now, but could be a cybersecurity issue in the near future. Anybody would like to share some ideas? Let's keep this a little interactive. Anybody?
I think at this point, everyone is interested to know about the futuristic perspectives, what kind of threats that we are facing. So after the presentation that we can.
All right. My respective colleagues have, have given a lot of overview. I'll just come to one particular aspect of why cybersecurity issue is not just a matter of hacking or, with just miscreants. It also is a governance issue. So, for example, one issue which all of us are facing, the whole world is now, facing right now, is in terms of vaccine passports. or vaccine credentials. China has already started to float vaccine passports for people who have already been administered the vaccines. So, and they're giving them digital vaccine certificates. This is a big time issue, and this is becoming going to become more famous, so that international travel can be, we can have more international travel. Problem again is that who administers this in terms of digital vaccine certificates? Iski certification kare kaun? And then how do you create some sort of interoperable and something which is capable of being shared with third parties globally? So let's say a certificate in China is acceptable in Pakistan. A certificate issued in Pakistan is acceptable in the USA. That sort of thing is very important. And for that, we need, there are many aspects of that. And we need to look at these issues and set our own house in order as well. So, for example, what is the governance of such initiatives? Isko karega kaun? Is it going to be NADRA? Is it going to be the Ministry of Health? Is it the FIA? Who is going to, what is the mechanism of the governance of such initiatives? Because we had initiatives which involve digital certification before as well, but there have been problems in it. So, for example, if you remember, we revamped NADRA, and but there were still issues with NADRA and with certification and all. Then we had issues of our visas, our passports. They were having problems. Then we tried to bring in some sort of a certification mechanism to certify karao. Even then, we had some problems. So who's going to govern such initiatives? That is a question we need to look at. Who's going to collect all this data? Because all this data that is really problematic. We already have issues of collection of data in terms of COVID-19. Itna bada problem already hum logon ke liye ho raha. Who's going to do that? Who's going to protect all this data? Ye kiski zimmedaari? Is it going to be the private sector? Is it going to be the public sector? And finally, there's one more thing about ethics and trust. Because at the end of the day, this is all about trust. Cybersecurity is not just the name of, that a hacker comes in and hacks things and all. There's also a thing about putting your own house in order as well. So we need to have these issues of ethics and trust as well, that we have trust in our system, that this particular organization that is going to give us these credentials and passports, we trust it, and it's trusted throughout the world. So this is one example which I wanted to share. And in terms of moving ahead, we need to have organizations which have some mandate of horizon scanning and scenario planning, and which is very important so that we can know in advance what sort of issues or what sort of disruptions are coming up, and then can then share with different organizations. Okay. Then there's also going to be need of policy engagement and communication with policymakers. Our policymakers are usually the last because they usually are not technically very adept. They usually have no idea at all about technical issues, and it's very hard to explain to them. So there's a need for better policy engagement, communication with them, with those policymakers, because at the end of the day, they're the people who are going to make some sort of policies about a particular issue. It could be a cyber issue, it could be a threat issue. Then we also need to have some sort of courses, some sort of sensitization of civil society organizations and higher education institutes. Very, very important. Because cybersecurity is such an issue, as my respected colleagues said in a very detailed way, it's very important that at a very, very early age, not just at higher education institutes, even at smaller schools, people need to know about the issues about cybersecurity. So, for example, my child, every morning he gets up and he takes a course on Zoom. So he needs to know about cybersecurity because he is already learning about it. So they need to be told about cybersecurity. Finally, we also need to have capacity building programs for the general public as well, which was well mentioned by my respected colleague as well, which is very important because we do not look at cybersecurity as a major issue. So, for example, we still have no idea how to have some sort of security issues on our phones, our mobile phones, on WhatsApp, the social media accounts on our phones. They are such big places which could be hacked, which could be used, misused, abused. And we still have no plan, no sort of policy how to make how to have some sort of cybersecurity issues, and the general public is still not sensitized about it. So there's a need of these capacity building programs for the general public and for policymakers as well. And that's essentially what I would like to say. Thank you very much for creating this dialogue space and giving me the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shiraz, for highlighting the audience about the future scenarios. As you said, we can have threat perception or better anticipation of threats by identifying different problems beforehand. And as you also mentioned that government actions come very late, and this is also a very huge problem that we are facing. So with this, I thank you all the panelists. And now we move toward the question and answer session. And first of all, I would like to ask a very quick and small question, that how many data centers that Pakistan have at this moment to keep its data safe, and that Nadra uses its own server. Are these servers is trustworthy or not? What kind of the nature of these servers have? Any panelist can please answer this question.
Well, Imran, I would like to have some. I would like to have some feedback upon this query. Since we know that you have asked us about the physical controls for the data center, as I have seen your question, right? So you see that there are different organizations in Pakistan, as we have a lot of FIs, we have a lot of organizations who are working under PTA, we have a lot of regulation organizations who are working under SECP, right? As far as that, how many of the data centers that we have exactly, I don't know about the number, about the figure right now. But at this moment, I would like to highlight one fact that is that should be highlighted at this moment, and that's very critical, and it's an initiative that I would really like to appreciate as well, from the regulatory point of view, that now the regulators have taken that have really assumed that importance of cybersecurity, and there are now the regulations that have been coming from the regulators as well. In the banking industry, we have the regulator as the SBP, we have the regulator at the telecommunication sector, we have the regulator at the SECP as well. So all these regulatories are now being mandating the organizations to implement certain controls for cybersecurity, and even they have generated the regulation and generated the circulars as well for the effective implementation of cybersecurity, and they have provided a compliance state as well. In that ambit, every organization which has been regulated by these authorities have to implement certain controls at the data center level as well. So the physical controls, as far as the physical controls and the security of our data center is concerned, yes, the organizations who were in that phase of optimizing themselves have now making themselves in a process of speeding up that, and they have geared up, and now they are doing it. So as far as the physical controls and the physical security is concerned, the organizations are now in the phase of taking that adaptability as well. And since I do not have that figure right now, but yes, I can say that even if we as the at organization level going to different service providers as well for the data centers, now the data centers are being complied with the international security standards as well. For example, the GDPR, for example, the ISMS 27001. So I think that we should not, obviously there are the roadmaps and there are the lackings as well, but we should highlight the promising aspect of our growing industry in cyberspace as well.
Thank you very much. I think Arzak Khan wants to respond.
Yes, I just wanted to share, since you asked about data centers in Pakistan. So at the moment in Pakistan, there are like 19 critical data centers. Three are based in Islamabad, nine of them are in Karachi, and seven of them are in Lahore. That is related to providing all our internet services and hosting of most important data services as well. I mean, when you talk about NADRA, I mean, NADRA is one of the critical organizations, and I have been part of the organization for quite some time right now. So the major database is based in Islamabad, and then we have replicated copies of the database all across the country as well. And given the architecture of the database, it is not something that is centralized, even though we talk about it as being one of the centralized databases, but the architecture is such that it is not a centralized database which can be exploited to a cybersecurity attack. One important thing that it's important to mention, and I really want to speak about it as well, is the use of biometrics. I mean, one of the emerging cyber threats we see, especially in banking, related to telecom, even using your mobile phone and access to various smartphone devices, is your thumbprint. And ensuring it that it is safe is very important. You get it stored on a national database. That's one. When you go for registration of your SIM card, you get your biometrics saved there as well. If you're going for a driving license, there's use of biometrics there. And even nowadays, people are using biometrics for banking services as well. So that's a very critical threat analysis as well. And we have seen in recent past, there are a lot of cyber crimes that's happening using fake rubber stamps that as a biometric feature, is getting a lot of attention on media as well. I think it's really important that we start educating people around safely securing your biometrics and not giving it everywhere. I think it's really important that organizations that are collecting these biometrics do comply to all the rules and regulations. But unfortunately, as mentioned by my peers in the webinar as well, there is a lot of gray areas around legislation and the impact of probably implementation of these rules and laws as well.
Thank you very much, Arzak Khan. I just wanted to point out that apart from government initiative, do you think that private organization does have any role to play in it, or does have any kind of help out the government to deal with the data server problems?
I think it's important. It's critical, not just important. When you look at the history of the internet, I think you see that the private sector has played a major part in establishing what we are, and instead of developing what we have in terms of an internet in the region. So yeah, private sector needs to take the lead on this. As we have seen with governments, I think it's not just a national phenomenon, it's a global phenomena that governments are slow to respond to the cybersecurity threat. Whether you're based in the US or in Europe or even in the Pacific, I think the response from governments has been slow. It's because the nature of the internet, the way it works, and the way it is revolutionizing things and evolution, it's really at a very fast pace. And from a government perspective, it really makes time and processes and policies to follow, which is very time consuming. So I think the private sector can take a lead in establishing Pakistan as one of the critical states where cybersecurity is practiced, not just in government sector as well, but in private sector as well. There are a lot of numerous initiatives that's been taking place locally and regionally as well. I think it's important that they do consider security as one of major aspect of a business plan. I mean, if you are running a platform selling clothes and you don't have important cybersecurity features embedded in the system, you might go bust as your business grows. And we have seen in the recent past, I mean, there have been examples of platforms like Yahoo. I mean, look what happened to them. They were one of the major email service provider along with other services, but with the number of breaches that were reported, their shares fell down overnight from $100 to around about $32. So yes, it's really important. And I think the private sector would be the lead on this as well. I mean, if Pakistan is to adopt the best practices for cybersecurity, I think the private sector needs to take the lead along with academics. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now the floor is open for question and answer session. I can see Mofa from Pakistan wants to ask a question. Please, Mofa, Pakistan. This is the person name is not written. There is disruption. You're not audible. I think there is.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. We can. Yes. You are audible now.
Okay. So thank you for giving me the floor. I have a question from Ma'am Sehrish. Ma'am Sehrish, you have amicably covered a few points like legislation of cybersecurity policy, national cyber command, a fifth generation warfare, regulating cyberspace. Some of the very relevant point, but I believe it belongs to a long-term solution. So while we are facing a cyber threat right now, and long-term solution may take some time to get implemented, I would like to ask that can we have some short-term solution in terms of educating our professional to thwart such attacks? And related to this question, I want to ask that can you recommend some short-term, short-duration online courses which could be helpful in conducting passive defense against cyber warfare? Thank you.
Thank you so very much for this question, and that's a very encouraging question even for the youth of Pakistan as well. And thank you so very much for highlighting this so that I can address it in a good manner in terms of answering you. So guys, see that obviously there are certain steps that needs to be taken at the national level, but obviously this is something that that would take some sort of time in order to implement. And yes, we as a cybersecurity professionals at different forums, we are trying to implement and imposing these things through our self initiatives and our through different other platforms as well, from which we are being associated. The other thing is that in short term, yes, we can do the capacity planning, and this is also one of the things that we as a cyber professionals, we try to reiterate or encourage to our youngsters as well, that the cyber space right now, not only in Pakistan but at international level as well, there is a dearth of cyber security professionals, not at the senior level or at the mid level, but at the very junior or at the very fresh graduate level as well. And there are too many institutions right now in Pakistan who are encouraging the young professionals to come in the field of cybersecurity, and they have certain fresh opportunities for them, even if they are the fresh graduates as well. So there are certain online courses and online trainings as well, and there are certain physical trainings as well for cybersecurity. I have started my career as a cybersecurity trainer in 2016, and the basic reason for starting that career was that there was a dearth of blue teaming, and we really wanted the blue teamers. And even in Pakistan, if we see that the youngsters, they have that mindset that we want to become the pen tester and we want to become that ethical hacker, but there is a dearth of transferring knowledge to them when the detection of cyber attacks and the implementation of SOC or security in, operations center is concerned. So guys, there are a lot of online sessions where you can enroll yourself and take free of cost trainings for SOC, for ethical hacking, for best cyber security control implementation, for cyber security frameworks. A part of it, I would like to highlight some of the certifications as well, which you as a youngster or as a beginner can pursue. But before that, I would like to encourage every the professional to define a roadmap, because this is not because that's very important to. Can you please mute? Yeah, so that's very important to define a roadmap, even if you want to be in the red teaming, that is at the pen testing side, or if you want to be at the blue teaming, that is at the side of detection and implementing that SOC, or you want to be at governance level, that is at the management level. So there are certain certifications for management level. For example, if you see this ISACA body is that which provides a level of certifications for those persons who want to pursue their careers at cybersecurity management side. Then there is a lot of technical trainings when we talk about the ethical hacking. For example, there are certain trainings which is related to the EC Council, and these trainings can help you to make your career at red teaming or towards the pen testing side. There are certain trainings related to the cyber area as well, certain trainings of SANS and certain trainings of other platforms like PCB as well, PECB as well. Then there is another roadmap which the youngsters can adopt, and that is the blue teaming or the SOC. So there are a lot of courses and a lot of certifications which is related to the SOC teaming or blue teaming. Even you can go for the certifications like the certified SOC analyst, and then there is an open leverage for you to become a good professional for the SIEM solutions as well. If you have that expertise in SIEM, for example, IBM QRadar, for example, Logarithm, for example, Splunk, for example, Alkistek, these are some of the SIEM solutions where the administration sort of jobs are readily available, even for the youngsters as well. All you need to do is just to have the conceptual knowledge and just to have the basic and foundation level knowledge of cyber security.
Thank you very much, Sehrish. Since this is a very pertinent question and very that needs to be answered comprehensively, it's a question of capacity building. So, Mr. Arzak Khan, would you like to add something? What we can do in the immediate and short-term perspective?
Yes, I think it was a very important question, and as a short-term measure, I think capacity building is really important, and it starts from schooling. I mean, if you follow the Israeli model, they start practicing and teaching cyber security from nursery level. And in Pakistan, we reach when we are about to reach, like for our master's degree, we start thinking about cyber security. And as my peer mentioned, I think my son gets up in the morning and the first thing he touches is his phone now. So this is the new revolution, and this is the way life's going to be for the future. So it's really important that we develop capacity building among youth. That's very important. And I'm now organizing some of these trainings regionally as well. I've shared the link, so members of the group feel free to apply. We fully fund this as well. So we are planning to organize few trainings in Islamabad as well. So I would be happy if you would be applying for this. The trainings would deal with digital security, holistic security, and overall the psychosocial support for using technology. I think when we talk about cybersecurity, at times we forget about the the psychological impact it has on this. So that's really important as well. How to deal when you are suffering from a cybercrime. I think that's really important, and way to get support. I think in our kind of society, it's really challenging, and we do run a helpline as well at Internet Policy Observatory that provides help to people in need, especially related to cybersecurity challenges. And we have done numerous workshops with schools and colleges and at university levels as well on basic cybersecurity hygiene. So there's a lot of courses online as well. I mean, you can look at Tactical Training Institute. It's an institute based out in Belgium. They provide a lot of digital security training, and their material is excellent. So you can use that in the academia as well. I mean, there are self-tutorials, there are videos which are very easy to understand for youth as well. I mean, it's not very complex, but it gives you a general idea on how to stay secure online. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Sheraz, would you like to add?
Well, thank you very much. The respective colleagues have given very comprehensive answers. I think there's this aspect of putting our own house in order as well. I think that is also one aspect which we have to really look into and really look hard into, because we're looking at the data of people. We're looking at numbers, and these numbers are going to now define people. We also need to then put our houses in order. So whoever agencies are involved in data and its combing and its collection and its analysis and making meaningful, putting something meaningful out of that data, those organizations also need to have some sort of checks and balances, which is very, very important. We can't just give them a free leash. For example, I gave you I talked about these vaccine passports or vaccine credentials. That is going to be a big time issue in the next few years and then in the near time. So it's very, very important that we have good people there. It's very important that the organizations which look at such issues, they are they have ethics, they have a good code of trust in them, and people can then trust them. Otherwise, it will be a thankless situation for Pakistanis throughout the world. We already had situations where our cricketers went to different countries and then their COVID tests they came negative. There were problems with that. We've had issues where we had people having tests, travelers having tests, and then when they went to other countries, then there was a thankless situation for Pakistanis over there. So it's very important to put our organizations, testing organizations, also in order so that we do not face any thankless situations tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Umar Sheraz. I just wanted the panelists to please shed some light on the nuclear domain. This is very important for Pakistan security threats. And the nuclear facilities that are vulnerable to the emerging cyber threats. So how can we cope with this situation? So since we do not have any command and control system, data system in the country installed, so what can we do in this domain? So any panelists can answer to this question.
I'm sorry, Imran, can you kindly repeat, because I had a little distortion and I was unable to hear you.
Okay, I just wanted you to please just shed some light on the nuclear facilities and the emerging cyber threats to those facilities in Pakistan. How we can deal this situation?
Well, as far as you have mentioned the nuclear facilities, right, and the cyber threat which is related to it. So my point of view is very simple and very clear, as I've iterated in my conversation as well, that the cyber threat which is associated with an organization, the cyber threat which is associated with any multinational, cyber threats which is associated with any hospital, cyber threats which is associated with any IS system of any organization of this world is the same as it's been replicated to the nuclear as well. Why? Because that's all the digital, right? So wherever the digitization comes, the cyber threats are more and less similar to, the capacity is the same. The nature of cyber threat is the same. Even if it's a school system or if it's a nuclear, the technique or, the strategy of making a cyber attack would be the same for the attacker, right? But yes, the question is that obviously the nature of attack can be different. As far as the cyber threat is concerned, especially related to the nuclear space or the nuclear facility that we have in Pakistan. So these are, these are different cyber attacks at different levels. For example, at if we talk about the defense in depth and we take the network level at the very initial stage. So there are certain threats which is related to the network layer. Then there are certain attacks which is or threats which is related to the application layer. Then there are certain threats which is related to the internal other layers, for example, the databases and then the servers as well, right? So there are different threats which is related to these layers, and even these threats are applicable to a nuclear system or to the IS system where a nuclear facility is being embedded. As you know that, yeah. So So there can be, different natures, and if we talk about the vulnerabilities and the threats which is associated to them, for that an organization or an IS system needs to make their risk in terms of the vulnerabilities at a very minimum level, so that they have a very minimum chance in order for an attacker to get themselves exploited.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Arzak Khan. Nuclear facilities and Pakistan preparedness. What's your take on it?
Thank you, Doctor. I think when you talk about nuclear facilities and our readiness for protecting the space, I think we need to go back to 2018 and talk about the Paris Call. I think the Paris Call for Trust and Security in Cyberspace is one such declaration that called on for all states, the private sector, the civil society organization, and groups that are not associated with the government or the private sector to work together to promote security in cyberspace, fight disinformation, and address the new challenges. I think there were 9 principles that were adopted during the declaration. The first was protecting individuals and infrastructure. I think that's very important. The next was protecting the internet. I think preventing activity that intentionally damages the general availability of the public core of the internet is such. And there were heaps of other ones, like defending the electoral system as well, defending intellectual property, and trying to balance non-proliferation. I think when you talk about cyber security for the nuclear assets, it's important to understand that it's a market where there is less development. I mean, there's no business case for cyber organizations or companies that provide cyber security to work with such organizations. So there is little development on that, and most of the work that is done is done behind a curtain, and there's a lot of confidentiality issues around it. So access to working groups, academic researchers, or even civil society organization or experts who are working on the field of cybersecurity, they do not have access to the systems or to understand or probably work with it. So it's really important that we develop a cyber hygiene that is implemented globally as well, and no private trackbacks are allowed. I mean, non-state actors are always involved in hacking back for their own purposes or for other non-state actors as well, and providing defense on the basis of international norms in a way that is acceptable globally is the measure that needs to be built in our cyber security program for nuclear assets as well. And this is something we need to talk about in the media as well. I mean, one such example that we have seen was again and again, and was with Iran. I mean, the NSO group provided the technology and the missile blow up, where we had like more than 40 to 50 scientists and journalists that were killed. So such incidents are already happening, and we need to be talking about them so we have general awareness and people can work together with the military establishment and the government, and especially the private sector as well, to embed strong security solutions for it.
Thank you very much. Now we are approaching towards the end of this session. So, and I would like to thank all the panelists for giving a detailed answer, Ms. Sehrish, Arzak Khan, and Umar Sheraz. All of you, thank you very much for sparing time. And I would say in the end that Pakistan has lots of potential to cope with to deal cyber challenges. The only need is to channelize the expertise of the IT personnels, IT professionals, which are working in Pakistan and as well working in abroad. So we also need to have a very controlled and a basic infrastructure for incorporating all the expertise and in this domain. So we are lagging behind. If we see the China and the India, both are leading countries in this domain. So we have to work a lot in this domain, and I hope Pakistan can do and can be better prepared if we utilize the expertise of the IT professionals. So in the end, I would like to thank again all the participants and the panelists. we would like to have another session with these distinguished panelists. Hopefully, the COVID is over, and then we can have we can physically invite you all at the Institute of Regional Studies. With this, thank you once again, and thank you my research team, and especially Ahmad Farooq, who has worked a lot and reaching out to these distinguished panelists. Thank you very much, everyone. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you.